almost sold out.
Donald Trump's latest Memorial Day screed, attacking fellow Americans as scum and calling federal judges U.S.-hating judges, is another attack on Harvard University, the oldest university in America and one of the leading research institutes. Many medical breakthroughs, including in cancer and in other infectious diseases, comes out of Harvard University. Now Donald Trump wants to take another $450 million away from them to punish them because they won't bend over and allow the Trump administration to impair their academic independence, run the university for them, tell them what they can and can't teach, tell them who they can and cannot admit. Harvard is not Harvard, for instance, without its international students. And now Donald Trump has done two things. One, he has said that $450 million that was going for effectively biomedical research is now going to go to trade schools in America. Look, I'm all for plumbers and electricians. I just don't think they're the substitute at this moment for biomedical research to help people live. And when he's busy doing that, which is on top of billions of other dollars of threatened cuts, as you may know, or I'll tell you here, he has effectively revoked, except for a federal judge intervention on Friday, revoked Harvard's ability to have any foreign students at all attend its university. Harvard is not Harvard without its international students. That's their words, not mine. Let me pull it all together on this Memorial Day hot take here on Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF. On Friday, and I love the pairing here, the cosmic justice. Jenner and Block, a law firm that is on, or is on Donald Trump's crap list, and is basically made persona non grata and radioactive by Donald Trump, trying to bar Jenner and Block from doing any business in front of the government, which was blocked last week by another federal court, is one of the major law firms representing Harvard University. This is why Donald Trump goes after the big law and big law firms, because he doesn't want to see them doing amazing legal work in cases against him. And they filed last week on the 23rd of May a motion for temporary restraining order because they're arguing to the Judge Allison Burroughs, that the revocation by the Department of Homeland Security of the visa program allowing foreign students to attend Harvard at all is the death knell for Harvard, both financially, their ability to have a diverse class, and otherwise. And just to do the math before we get into the order of Judge Burroughs, which in one page blocked the attempt by Donald Trump to deny Harvard the ability to accept foreign students. And this is all under the phony guise and the false flag of preventing anti-Semitism on campus. Look, I'm all for if there's a terrorist link between people in the streets and what they're saying, and there actually are terrorists, all right, get them off the streets. But like students and graduate students with bed sheets spray painted in a courtyard, that's called the First Amendment as far as I'm concerned. Even if I find what they're saying to be distasteful, I'll defend the right for them to say it. Now, just so you can do the math here, there are about 7,000 or so foreign students on Harvard's campus. And the makeup, forget, anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel activist on campus. What is that, like 6, 10, 30? But the rest, 1/3 of the Harvard Business School, 1/3 of the Harvard Business School, the competitor school for the one that Donald Trump went to at Wharton at University of Pennsylvania, 1/3 are international students. They are not carrying around, they're not living in the tent city to protest, the Israel war with Hamas. 1/2 of the Harvard Kennedy School of Diplomacy, 1/2, is made up of, you guessed it, foreign students. That's why Harvard keeps saying Harvard's not Harvard without international students. Donald Trump wants to take control of the faculty, wants to decide who makes tenure, wants to decide what students are let in, and is going after the very lifeblood. Right.
Amazon Shipping has the technology and transportation network to move your business forward. Sell on your channels, deliver with ours. Whether you ship on weekdays or weekends, we've got you covered. Put the strength of Amazon behind your business. Get daily pickups, transparent rates, fast claims, and smooth deliveries. Deliver. Snap. Daily. Reliable, simple, easy. That's us.
Spectracide Weed and Grass Killer is a threat against weeds and grass. The formula kills broadleaf and grassy weeds down to the root and is rainproof in 15 minutes. Killer outcomes from a brand trusted by millions for more than 60 years. Spectracide, you hold the power.
Right? Of all these feeder sources to keep Harvard alive and try to kill it. Here's what the motion for temporary restraining order that was just filed by Jenner and Block, yes, the same firm that is itself the recipient of a temporary restraining order successfully in a preliminary injunction and permanent injunction that says the Trump administration is violating their First Amendment rights, their due process rights, by making them unable to do business with clients who have business before the federal government. Here's what they said in their filing, and then I'll read to you from the order and tie it all together with this new Memorial Day attack by Donald Trump. This is from the motion for temporary restraining order. For more than 70 years, Harvard University has been certified by the federal government to enroll international students under the F-1 visa program, and it's long been designated as an exchange visitor program sponsor. Harvard has, over time, developed programs and degrees tailored to these international students, invested millions to recruit them, and integrate them into all aspects of the Harvard community. Remember, they have competitors, Harvard. They're the oldest university in America, but they have competitors, both in the Ivy League and outside the Ivy League, who are recruiting. Yesterday, the government abruptly revoked Harvard's certification to host these students without due process. The government's revocation of Harvard certification was not a product, the motion continues, of the ordinary review process set out in detailed regulations that define the limited circumstances under which a certification may be revoked. On its face, the revocation is part of the government's broader effort to retaliate against Harvard for its refusal to surrender its academic independence. In response to the government's disagreement with the perceived viewpoints of Harvard, its faculty, and its students, the government issued a series of demands requiring Harvard to submit to government oversight of the faculty it hires, the students it admits, and the courses it teaches. When Harvard declined, the administration unleashed the full power of the federal government, freezing billions in federal grants, proposing to eliminate Harvard's tax-exempt status, opening multiple federal investigations, and terminating its participation in the visa programs. Yesterday, the government made good on the threat and did so via a letter that makes plain that the Department of Homeland Security is not even pretending to follow its own regulations. Revoking certification is unlawful many times over. It is one of the pillars of our constitutional system that the government cannot invoke legal sanctions and other means of coercion.
Where I been, huh? Hey, Mad Dog.
Treatment is animated by viewpoint discrimination. Okay, look, the moment the weather changed, my allergies showed up like an uninvited guest at a deposition or a witness at a trial. Sneezing, congestion, itchy everything. And of course, the stuff I grabbed from the drugstore never really works.
How's everyone? Thank you for dropping in. I'm trying to get some watch time hours up. Trying to get some watch time hours. I ain't been on in a while.
To help ordinary Americans survive and give it to trade schools, so I guess I can get I can find an electrician.
I ain't got no, got no 4K. Shut up, fool. I'm doing well, thank you, man.
Of Harvard University because you don't like its First Amendment expression, and you want to effectively have a government takeover of a private university. This is what it was so easy for Judge Burroughs after a small hearing that this is what she ordered. Order granting plaintiff's motion for temporary restraining order. The TRO is justified. Accordingly, defendants and anyone acting in concert or participation with defendants.
My bad, 10K. Dude, you owe me child support. I don't know what you
A
talking about.
plaintiff's SEVP certification. That's the ability to have foreign students. Signed, Judge.
Catalina Crunch cereal. Powered by
You owe me child support. I'm still looking for my child support. What is wrong with you? Get my money.
Allison Burroughs, United States District Court, Massachusetts. This will now go up to the First Circuit Court of Appeals, which sits over Massachusetts. Then it will end up at the United States Supreme Court. I don't think with an emergency application, although it could be. I mean, if the Supreme Court, where many of the people went to law school at Harvard, and even undergraduate at Harvard, including the Chief Justice, they think this is an emergency, and they want to undo this block to allow Donald Trump to cut off federal funding as a retaliation against the university because he doesn't like what they're doing on campus related to, attacks on students.
When
There's
a
other
man
ways to
have a
police that issue,
baby.
by the way. By the way, I know there's a rumor, which I love, and if only it were true, that Barron Trump is only going to my alma mater, NYU, because he was rejected by Harvard. And I would love that to be true. I've sourced this out a number of ways, including organizations like Snopes that look at these things very carefully. And there's no facts to support that he got a rejection letter and wanted to go to Harvard. Look, the entire family, the Trump family, went to Georgetown and University of Pennsylvania. None of them really have a connection with Harvard. There's rumors about why Ivanka didn't do well at Georgetown, along with when she met her husband, Jared. But we'll leave that for another day. However, there was never a Harvard link with the Trump family. It would have been really unusual for Barron to apply there. And I thought he was definitely going to go to work and where his father went. Or at the very least, Georgetown.
I bet you
State
do,
Washington.
Tennessee.
But he's a mama's boy. When he's not busy running as the second or third Fredo in the family's crypto business, he wanted to stay in Manhattan. He wanted to live at Fifth Avenue in the Trump Tower and go to school down Fifth Avenue on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 10th Street where I lived when I was in a dorm to go to NYU. It's where a lot of rich kids go who want to stay at home or stay near home. So I wasn't that shocked that Mommy Melania, who barely is in the White House and wanted to stay in New York herself, wanted to keep close tabs on her son and didn't want to be schlepping up to Boston during the academic year. But the fact it has a ring of it's truthy, as Stephen Colbert would say. It's like J.D. Vance on the couch. I get it. But we got bigger fish to fry here, because if Harvard falls, we all fall. This is not just an attack on Harvard, on academic freedom. This is an assault on American democracy and one of the major pillars, and we've got to call it out. So I'm gonna kind of pull all this together. Donald Trump's attacks on Harvard and trying to cut off their funding and decertify them and get international students and again paint with a broad brush and tar and feather all foreign students and make them all, just like he does, all Venezuelans, all Mexicans, all people
can't
from
make
El
this
Salvador
shit
are
up.
criminals, all people from
Jesus
Cuba.
grabbed the wheel.
These are just voting blocks. The Hispanic community voted in large numbers for
Got a real
Trump.
Diddy and all the
But
niggas
I
and
never understood why.
niggas.
It's completely against their self-interest. You see how he treats immigration.
They put themselves in a crime.
Military immigration when they came back. And Florida is a state.
Oh my God. Because they running them out. They
immigrants.
saying, hey.
Of Miami-Dade County.
They
This
need
is
to
fact.
be
And
noticed.
50% of that is Cuban. With a fair number of Venezuelans and people from Brazil and Mexicans and Haitians and the rest. And yet we have a governor who's anti-immigration. We have a president that is anti-immigration. And this shouldn't work in our America. An America that's getting blacker and browner every year.
That's
not
right.
less, not whiter. So we'll continue to follow how other universities have also supported Harvard. But also, shout out to Jenner and Block. They have been working hard and winning to make sure that they're in the game, that they're not sidelined from democracy, that they're able to defend institutions like Harvard and the next Harvard. Because they had to get themselves off of the list. And they successfully did that because they've been the subject of Trump's ire and his retribution. I'll continue to follow it all right here. I'm back on the Midas Touch Network. Thank you much for
What you mean? No egg cooking. I'm cooking me some damn eggs in a minute. I'm cooking. I'm cooking me some eggs in a damn minute. What you talking about? Well, I don't know what you talking about. No eggs. Motherfucker, cook a steak and no eggs. I'm about to record. I'm about to record. I'm gonna make some breaded red steak sandwiches.
And that is the headline in the Wall Street Journal. After
His ass
Russia
backwards.
launched what Ukrainian officials said was the largest aerial assault on the country since the war began. More than 350 drones and missiles bombarded dozens
Damn.
of Ukrainian cities, including the capital Kyiv, last overnight, Saturday, killing at least 12 people, including 3 children, according to Ukrainian officials. Donald Trump, who claimed he would end Russia's war against Ukraine on day one
Rolled
of
up.
his
Mr.
presidency,
Levy on
said
some thrill
this
shit,
about
woman.
Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday.
I'm not
I
happy
love
with
you
what
too,
Putin's
Kansas
doing.
City.
He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Of course, Vladimir Putin has been doing that every day since he sent Russian troops to invade Ukraine on
Yeah.
February 24th, 2022. And when Vladimir Putin started that war that day, Donald Trump said that Vladimir Putin is a genius. That's what Donald Trump said at the beginning of Vladimir Putin launching this war. Last night, Donald Trump posted on social media that Vladimir Putin, quote, has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly
is.
killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. Again, Vladimir Putin has been doing that every day of his war. Russia
Right. He been doing it every day. You study, he's so stupid. I don't know why he fucking think that Putin is his friend. He wants to be a strong man like Putin. Putin look at his dumb ass and be like, yeah, you're a useful tool, fool. They supposed to do negotiations for a ceasefire. Soon Donald Trump get off the phone or or leave. That motherfucker throw the missiles right up in Ukraine. Like they ain't never talk. Just when you think it can't get no more full of fuck shit, more shit happens. Yeah, because it's constant bullshit. Constant. The shit is exhausting.
has continued to escalate the attacks since Donald Trump has been commenting on them, according to the Kyiv Independent, launching its third large-scale aerial and drone assault against Ukraine in 3 nights, killing at least 6 people and injuring 24 over the past 24 hours. And today, a Kremlin spokesperson said that Donald Trump's statements about Vladimir Putin's war are, quote, an emotional reaction due to, quote, emotional overload.
Like said that shit about him like he a bitch. Emotional. that, that motherfucker said, I don't know what happened to him. Y'all weren't never friends, you fucking dumbass. And Diddy and the dumbasses trying to get fame blocking themselves. It's a civil trial. Now y'all dumbasses in the RICO criminals trying to get fame. Anything. I told you they wanted to be seen. They needed attention. Look at here. I was in that shit too, you know. Trump gonna swing on the motherfucker. So no the fuck he ain't. He a fucking punk. He just a bully. He a damn punk. That's why Putin been punking his bitch ass out ever since this fucking ceasefire. Putin, Putin like, yeah, okay, ceasefire. Soon they hang up the phone. This motherfucker sending drones, everything over there, and he's sending it in civilian areas, not the military, not the military, the civilians. That motherfucker is a dog.
Our first guest tonight, former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, said on social media, Trump is always tough in words on social media, but he never follows through in actions, which makes him look weak. Joining us now is Michael
He is
McFaul,
weak.
former U.S. ambassador to Russia and MSNBC international analyst. And Ambassador McFaul, to read Donald Trump saying Vladimir Putin is crazy, and he's crazy because he's killing a lot of people. This is something Donald Trump could have
That
said
motherfucker ain't bombing
every
shit.
day since February of 2022, back when he was calling Vladimir Putin a genius for starting this war.
Exactly, Lawrence. I'm glad you're pointing that out. Putin's behavior has not changed at all. He's been acting like this from the beginning of the war, slaughtering civilians, kidnapping Ukrainians, launching these massive attacks against civilian sites. And I'm glad that the president has finally acknowledged it and observes it. I hope it will compel him to change his strategy, because his strategy of negotiating, of trying to end this war, which I applaud, by the way, I'm glad he's trying, but to just appease Putin and give him everything he wants and put pressure on the Ukrainians has not achieved any results. And just the
Right, it ain't achieved shit because he's trying to still be Putin friend. Putin, please, my friend, please don't make me have to put sanctions on you. Putin, like, you useful dumbass tool. Shut the fuck up, and then blow some more shit up over there. You crazy? He just slaps the shit out of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you a punk.
contrary, I actually think now the Russians are mocking the president of the United States.
Yeah, they mocking him. Shit.
Why do you think, with your knowledge of Vladimir Putin and your study of him, why do you think Putin is deciding to do this and, in effect, at least on social media, at least for a day, turn Donald Trump against him?
Man, that shit ain't gonna happen.
You know, President Trump, as he said in that tweet, that comment, I've always had a good
He ain't gonna
relationship
do
with Vladimir
shit.
Putin.
He
I
gonna
think it's
bomb
important
them
to remember
fingers
that
on that
Putin's never
damn,
thought
on that
bad
truth
about
social
President
and talk
Trump.
shit.
When people try to appease him, when they treat him and they praise him, he sees that as signs of weakness, not strength. And I would say that's true with all leaders for the last 25 years. And so now he's just calling his bluff. He's like, you're a tough guy on social media. You won't do anything. And I think his calculation is President Trump will eventually walk away. He'll stop providing assistance to Ukraine. And that's exactly what Vladimir Putin wants, because he wants to continue this war. I don't think he's really interested in negotiating an end to
Hell
this war.
no.
And it seems that the Trump walking away version of this is to, in effect, claim he tried, but he'll maybe say something along the lines of both sides don't want peace. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, so he can get
And
out
then
of it. He talked
turn
all
his
that
back, and
shit.
maybe somewhere in there claim some kind of victory, because he always does.
Before he even won, that motherfucker, I will have that war ended in 24 hours, maybe less. I don't know why he think motherfuckers respect him, because everybody know he's dumb as fuck. He's a bully or an emperor with no clothes. He's crazy. He dumb as hell. He got a lot of shit going on. He's got dementia going on. I'm telling y'all, Trump been cut off Ukraine, and Putin keep fucking with him. He gonna snap. He ain't gonna snap on shit. He gonna snap. He gonna snap on America. Biden was not done, Kennedy. Biden wasn't done at all. Biden ain't never been done. Biden ain't never been done. He ain't never been done. Now, the orange man is dumb. Yeah, they get because he's an ally. See, now you talking dumb, can see. You don't know shit, so shut the fuck up.
Yes, tragically, I think that's true. And the second point you just made is very important. He couldn't resist, right? He had to take a shot at President Zelensky in that same statement. So he'll blame both sides and walk away. But I want to underscore this is not in America's national interest to have a president of the United States behaving this way. Because if we walk away and we don't achieve the objectives he promised, it's just not bad for Ukraine. It's bad for security in all of Europe. It makes everybody have to worry about our commitment. And it's bad in Asia. I was just in Taiwan a couple months ago, and let me tell you, the people on the island of Taiwan are watching very closely. Because if we abandon Ukraine today, what's to say we won't abandon other friends, allies, and partners tomorrow?
Right.
And going forward, as you see it militarily, can the Europeans help support Ukraine enough without the kind of support the United States has been delivering?
No.
Well, they will and they should, and I think most certainly,
Saving my pussy.
especially
Hell
with
no.
the production inside Ukraine, especially
You
of drones,
stupid.
they'll be able to hold on. But there are certain kinds of weapon systems, HIMARS, ATACMS in particular, that the Ukrainian armed forces need, and we're the only country in the world that has them right now. So if we do withdraw, that will have very negative consequences for the armed forces of Ukraine.
What is your reading of how President Zelensky has been handling the unfolding of these events since his time in the Oval Office that deliberately went badly because of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance trying to make it go badly?
I think he's doing a very admirable job, Lawrence. I mean, he
Kennedy, you
met
better
with the
shut up.
president without any cameras, without the vice president there in Italy. That meeting seemed to go very well. His team with Secretary Bessent signed the minerals deal. I think that was a win for the United States, a win for Ukraine. When President Trump said there should be a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, President Zelensky immediately jumped and said, I'm ready to do it. And when President Putin then said, well, we need direct talks, President Zelensky called his bluff and flew to Turkey. So I think he's doing everything he can, and therefore I hope that the president will reconsider this idea of just walking away from the Ukrainians, because that, I think, sends a very bad signal about our credibility. And I also just think it's the wrong thing to do. There is good and evil in this war. It's not both sides are at fault. One side is a democratic country, the other side is a dictatorship. The United States of America should be on the side of good, on the
Like
side
a
of
bush.
democracy.
Ambassador Michael McFaul, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And coming up, inside the Republican budget bill that was passed
The
by the House
big,
of
beautiful
Representatives by
bill.
only one vote is a provision that's gotten very little notice that targets the authority of federal judges. That's next. The Republican budget bill, which includes more than $700 billion in Medicaid
Yes,
cuts,
we broke up at
and $500 billion
88.
in Medicare
I ain't know
cuts,
your
and
ass at
nearly
88.
$4 trillion in tax cuts, mostly for very rich people, passed the House by one vote last week. No Democratic House members voted for the bill, and today, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said there will be no Democratic votes in the Senate for that same bill, which means the Republicans can afford to lose only 3 Republican senators' votes and still pass that bill. Yesterday, Republican Senator Ron Johnson said he doesn't think there are enough Republican votes in the Senate to pass the bill.
I think we
That's
have
why you
enough to
didn't
staff the process
nominate it. You
until the
shaved it
president
off.
gets serious about the spending reduction and reducing the deficit.
Senator Rand Paul said he won't support the bill as currently written.
I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. Somebody has to stand up and yell, "The emperor has no clothes," and everybody's falling in lockstep on this. Pass the big beautiful bill. Don't
The
question
emperor has
anything.
no brain either.
The New York Times reports that House Republicans slipped a provision
One, two,
into
four.
their bill, which, if
Shut up,
enacted,
Kenneth.
would limit federal court's authority to hold Donald Trump in contempt. Quote, the sprawling domestic policy bill Republicans pushed through the House on Thursday would limit the power of federal judges to hold people in contempt, potentially shielding President Trump and members of his administration from the consequences of violating court orders. The provision would apply retroactively to court orders that were made before it was enacted, including ongoing cases where federal judges are weighing whether to hold Trump administration officials in contempt over deporting immigrants. Federal court cases have issued at least 25 nationwide injunctions against Donald Trump, according to the Congressional Research Service. On May 15th, the Supreme Court heard arguments in 3 cases that currently prevent Donald Trump from denying citizenship to American-born babies. At 7:22 a.m. today, Donald Trump proved once again why he is unworthy to be president of the United States by posting on Memorial Day this poison on social media.
Yeah, he went crazy.
Happy Memorial Day to all,
Listen to
including
this shit.
the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. All protected by these USA-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous.
Because they
for
won't
our
let you
country.
get away with that
Hopefully,
shit.
the United States Supreme Court and other good and compassionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of the
Accidental over same-day
Man,
appointments,
because
so
the
you get the
judges
care you need.
is not letting them get away with that illegal shit that he's doing. So now they gotta be. That motherfucker is a straight old stupid ass crank. He is stupid fuck. It's been motherfuckers trying to open emergency doors. I tell motherfuckers, you got a bar, get them lit, and fuck with them mentally. You know what's crazy? For some reason, planes coming in and out of Houston. They fucked up. There's been some crazy shit going on. Man, there's been some shit going on, man. The motherfuckers is getting crazy.
monsters who want our country to go to hell. Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren from California. She's a member of the House Judiciary Committee and served on the January 6th Select Committee. Congresswoman Lofgren, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And when I see those words, USA hating judges, that sort of thing from Donald Trump, and you think back to Richard Nixon, who was literally driven out of the presidency by the United States Supreme Court, unanimously ruling against him. Richard Nixon never once dreamed of using language like that to apply to any federal judges.
Well, let's be frank, Lawrence. If a member of our family approaching 80 years of age posted that after midnight in all caps, our family would be trying to do an intervention and get some medical help to see if this person was suffering from dementia. Looks really unhinged. But on the merits of what's happening, I'm very disappointed, but unfortunately not surprised that the Republicans are trying to take judicial power away from the judiciary. I mean, Article 3 fully vests the judicial power of the United States in the courts. They have full power over all cases in law and equity. And, we went through this in the Judiciary Committee to try and retroactively remove the authority to enforce your rulings is unprecedented and really contrary to upholding the rule of law. Earlier today, I was at some Memorial Day services, and one of the things I said was, that those who we honor ran towards gunfire, and they gave everything for our freedom. We're not asking those of us today to run into a barrage of machine gun fire. We're just asking people to stand up for the rule of law and for the Constitution and to preserve our democracy. And those remarks were well received this morning.
What would it mean to the country if this provision restricting the authority of federal judges were to become law?
Well, as we discussed in the Judiciary Committee, judges have the authority to set what the bond would be. They could set the bond at $1, and you could raise that by, spare changing it outside the courthouse. The real pernicious aspect of this is it's to apply retroactively before judges ask for a $1 bond in the effort to prevent the Trump administration from being held accountable, not only for violating the law, but for violating court orders, which several courts are on their way, it looks to me, like finding. And there's really no need. I mean, for an injunction to be issued, a court has to find that the petitioner has a likelihood of prevailing at trial and that they will suffer irreparable harm. So it's not as if this is willy-nilly, a casual thing for a judge to do. The whole intent of this is to save Donald Trump's administration from being held accountable for violating court orders that have already occurred. And it's really despicable, really.
Representative Zoe Lufgren, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And joining our discussion now is congressional historian Norm Ornstein. He is an emeritus scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. And Norm, this is a Memorial Day. You have read so many presidential declarations on Memorial Day. Donald Trump issues one, and he talks about scum, and he's talking, when he does that, he's talking about federal judges, he's talking about anyone who voted against him, he's talking about every Democratic member of Congress, every Democrat governor in the country. That's what he's deciding to address, and that's the way he wants to talk about people in this country on Memorial Day.
It's what a narcissistic sociopath would do, Lawrence. And let's remember that the day before, he gave a commencement address at West Point
that was
emerging
terrible.
military leaders that itself was unhinged, wore his campaign hat, and then left before doing what every other president has done when they've given that address, which is to shake the hands of the people who are graduating from West Point. He said, I have to deal with China and Russia, and then went off to play golf. So the contempt that the commander-in-chief we now has for our fallen heroes and for emerging military leaders is sickening. Let's also note, Lawrence, that this provision that you were just talking about with Zoe Lofgren does not in any way fit under the rules of reconciliation, something you know well from having dealt with it over many years in the Senate. But I wouldn't be surprised if somehow some version of this bill goes through, that the Senate Republicans will basically bypass the parliamentarian who will tell them flatly, no, you can't do this, to try and make it happen and hamstring the judiciary from holding any of the Trump people, including lawyers who are flouting judges' orders, in contempt. We're dealing with a hostile takeover of the government by somebody who doesn't like our own military, but who also loves what the other dictators are doing.
Yeah.
And then we can get to the substance of this horrific, big, beautiful bill.
I want to go back to that first note you struck about the mental capacity of the current president of the United States, which is on display every day as completely inadequate for the presidency on any level, be it intelligence or knowledge or emotional stability or even appreciation of very fundamental things about what it means to be American. That is relentlessly on display nonstop. At the same time, when some people want to just keep the focus on Joe Biden and what condition was he in the final year of his presidency, when Joe Biden never, ever, ever said anything like what Donald Trump just said today, what Donald Trump says every day, and no one has pointed out a single presidential decision that Joe Biden got wrong somehow because of mental capacity. Donald Trump, we're seeing, as just the scene you described yesterday at West Point, is something where anyone would question the mental health, the mental capacity of that person.
Sadly, Lawrence, our mainstream press continue to normalize the abnormal and treat Trump as if he were a standard president, maybe, sometimes deviating. We will see good investigative articles, often very good op-eds, but then we'll see headlines about speeches like he gave at West Point, completely unhinged, treated as if they are reasonable speeches. And this focus on Biden, I believe, with a press corps giving out medals to those writing books about Biden's capacity, saying, see, they're the ones responsible for what's happened here and why we have Trump, without even reflecting on their own culpability for not holding a truly unhinged president accountable, is a real serious part of the problem. I would also note, Lawrence, that the other day Trump signed a slew of executive orders, and it was clear he had no clue what these did or what was in them. The presidency is being run, for the most part, the domestic part of the presidency, by Elon Musk, and particularly by Russell Vought, the head of the Office of Management and Budget, who stayed out of the headlines, but who was the architect of Project 2025. And that's now what's governing our domestic policy, while this guy natters on and issues True Social.
Well, I cheat on you for Father's Day. What time do I get my money?
Note also, Lawrence, that they've taken down all of the transcripts, virtually all of them, from what Trump has said officially or unofficially, because they know if people look at those, it will become very clear what the mental situation and capacity of Donald Trump is. They're covering up for him in a way that makes what Joe Biden did look like jaywalking compared to hit and run.
Mm-hmm.
A quick little YouTube break to introduce you to my...
Yeah, because they know that motherfucker is crazy. I ain't got no money for you. Where's my child support? Where is it? Where is my child support, dude? What is up? Where's my child support right now?
I guess really appreciate it.
You bet, Lawrence. Good to see you.
Coming up, Donald Trump is escalating his attack on America's oldest and most distinguished university every day. Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe will join us next to respond to Donald Trump's latest attack.
I ain't been live in a while. That's why I'm doing this.
This morning on social media, Donald Trump once again attacked the oldest university in America, saying, "We are still waiting for the foreign student lists from Harvard so that we can determine, after a ridiculous expenditure of billions of dollars, how many radicalized lunatics, troublemakers all should not be let back into our country." Harvard is very slow in the presentation of these documents, and probably for good reason. The best thing Harvard has going for it is that they have shopped around and found the absolute best judge for them, but have no fear the government will, in the end, win. I am considering taking $3 billion of grant money away from a very anti-Semitic Harvard and giving it to trade schools all across our land. What a great investment that would be for the USA, and so badly needed. During our discussion now, Professor Lawrence Tribe, who has taught constitutional law at Harvard Law School for 5 decades. Professor Tribe, what is your response to Donald Trump's latest attack?
Well, it's really hard for us to know where to begin. He's obviously unhinged. He has no idea what he's talking about. He just thinks that slinging around, frankly, BS about the people at Harvard and other institutions will somehow substitute for taking the law into account. He has been throwing everything he can at Harvard, and courts have put a stop to it. There was no judge shopping. The district court that happens to have the other Harvard case, the federal district court in Boston, with a very capable judge, Allison Burroughs, obviously has this case. It's closely related. This case involves Trump's attempt
Still won't see us
to
in
tell Harvard that it can no longer host foreign students. Now that's crazy. There's no legal basis for it. He's talking about information that he would like about students. He wants to know details about what they say, what they think. That's a violation of the First Amendment. But put it in perspective, Harvard is going to admit about 25,000 new students. They're entering in 4 months. 18,000 of them are
Oh, really?
Americans.
Damn.
Those 18,000 eagerly await something like 7,000 foreign students whom Trump is trying to basically frighten into throwing away their hard-fought, well-earned admission letter, a letter that tells them they are the best and the brightest from around the world. And he's doing that by threatening, with no legal basis, Harvard's right to admit them. There's a program called the Student Exchange Visitor Program. For 70 years, Harvard has been admitting the most brilliant students and scholars from around the world. They are welcomed.
That's why they're trying to stop him, because he's dumb. So he don't like smart people.
What they discover benefits the country, and benefits the health and welfare of all Americans. We used to have a program, it was called Operation Paperclip, to attract the most brilliant students from the countries we defeated in World War II. Many of the people who came to this country, like Albert Einstein, made this a mecca of discovery and learning. But obviously this is a president who hates intellect, who despises the symbol of excellence in the world of higher education around the world.
Because he's jealous, because he knows he's fucking dumb. That's why he have to go around being a fucking bully. But he's just a lost, old, stupid soul.
Thinks he can score points by attacking Harvard. But I have a message, and it's a message that I wouldn't bother delivering to him. I don't know that he'd understand it. But a message to those 7 students, those 7,000
It went up
students
another
that he's
10K.
trying to frighten
I love
away.
you too. Happy Memorial Day. Well, it's over now, huh?
This guy is a paper tiger. He's a tin horn tyrant.
Yeah.
In the month of May, there were all kinds of cases across the country, judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats, involving Donald Trump and his megalomaniac attacks.
You really do keep going up on the price. And you owe me.
His record was he lost over 95% of them. Just a couple of hours after his lawless and savage claim that he was going to shut down Harvard as a host for foreign students, just a couple of hours after that, of course, Judge Burroughs entered a temporary restraining order. She's going to hold a hearing this Thursday. I will be interested in hearing.
You got
what in
overhead.
the world Harvard will confront. What in the world Trump's lawyers can possibly argue? There is no law that justifies what they're trying to do. And their attempt to retaliate against Harvard for not turning over all kinds of information to which they have no right, in violation of the privacy of these students, retaliating against Harvard for having a curriculum that this president doesn't like, not that he understands it.
Right.
That retaliation is flagrantly and flatly unconstitutional. Among other things, picking out by name a particular institution is what the framers of our Constitution called a bill of attainder. He is trying to basically destroy a particular institution, and then he'll turn to others. But right now, he's named one, and
I don't go to your
7,000
church, so I don't
identifiable
care.
students who've been admitted. He knows their names. It's not a secret. They have admission letters. He's trying to target all of these people for retaliation. So if you want to know what my answer is see you in court, Mr. President.
All right.
Yeah, this demand he makes today, he says he's waiting for the foreign student lists from Harvard. All of their visas are granted by the State Department, every one of them. The State Department knows every single student visa that it has issued, and so part of the madness that he spews just includes stuff like that is not, doesn't require some kind of, special discovery from Harvard or from any institution.
Right. In fact, that's the story of this whole case. He keeps coming up with crazy demands, either for information he already has, or for information he has no right to have. He wants to know what basically, if you read closely what he's asking for, he basically wants to know what these students are going to read. He would love to know what they're going to say, what they're going to think. He wants to be confident that they won't join any protests against Israel's war in Gaza. It's all an attempt to take over the intellectual underpinnings of a private university. And anybody who isn't connected to Harvard shouldn't feel confident that they won't be next.
Hell no, just shut up.
Going for us is the law. And what is clear is that federal courts, regardless of who appointed them, have some fidelity to the law. They actually care about it. And they have been successful very quickly in telling Trump to stop. Now, it is true that no member of the Trump administration has yet been held in contempt. But just wait. Proceedings are underway. Contempt findings and criminal contempt findings are not at all unlikely. And the only reason that's taking time is that our judges are trying very hard to make absolutely sure that they dot every I,
I ain't
cross
signing
every T,
anything,
and
Kennedy.
that their contempt adjudications will be upheld. Then Trump is likely to say, well, they've been held in contempt, but I'm going to pardon them. Well, the pardon power doesn't really extend to contempt of court when it's criminal contempt inherent in the court's own power. He likes to pardon people if they are on his side and if they engage in violence, but that isn't going to help here. So clearly, it's not a situation in which students ought to be scared, although it's hard to blame them. It's not so hard for me, somebody who was born to Russian Jewish refugees in war-torn Shanghai, who was welcomed to this country at the end of World War II to honor the people who sacrificed their lives so we could enjoy the fruits of freedom. And it's pretty easy for me to see Memorial Day as an occasion to stand up to somebody like this tyrant. It's harder for lots of foreign students who face these threats and wonder, am I safe? But the siren of safety in succumbing to lawless power is really illusory. If you give up in advance, that's when you're not safe.
Right.
But trust me, Harvard has your back because you are crucial to us and to our survival. The intellect that
You didn't what?
bring to Harvard and to the country is something we value and need, so we're on your side.
We are
You didn't sign a birth certificate on our 70-year-old son / my yeah. Our child is not 70. And even if our child was grown, you still have to pay child support. Because you never paid any.
because you're prevailing over Trump in this lawless war he is waging on the mind is vital to our courts and their survival as keepers of the flame of the rule of law. So yes, you've got an enemy in this deranged Donald Trump, but you've got millions of friends, and they will support you. That's why I think that the threats that this deranged president is making in these ludicrous tweets should not be taken seriously, although the threat he poses to the country is as serious as hell.
Yeah.
Harvard Law Professor Lawrence Tribe, thank you very much for taking the time
Oh,
to
damn,
join
that
us
was
today.
Tribe.
Really
That was Tribe.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Okay. And coming up, new reporting from Michigan about how the Trump tariffs are actually threatening American industry. That's next.
Yeah, it's Tribe.
The New York Times is reporting today on how the Trump tariffs and the Trump Republican budget bill are harming the emerging American battery industry. The New York Times reports from Holland,
I
Michigan,
think Tribe was a
domestic
judge.
factories that make batteries to store power to meet America's rising energy demand depend on Chinese components and federal subsidies. But President Trump's tariffs on China may knock this fledgling industry off course. Another threat is brewing in Congress for House Republicans, with Mr. Trump's blessing, have passed a budget bill that analysts say would drastically restrict access to subsidies for making and using rechargeable batteries. According to one Bloomberg analyst, if the Republican budget bill took effect in its current form, it would be something of a kill switch for the tax credits available for making batteries. It also would quickly end tax credits for installing them on the grid. Former Democratic Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives, Joe Tate, has announced his run for for a Senate seat in Michigan in 2026 with an ad against the Trump agenda.
Washington has broken. Instead of creating opportunity for all, Donald Trump and the Republicans are cutting taxes for the wealthy, and they're betraying our senior citizens, our children, and my fellow veterans to do it. On the battlefield,
You too high.
I never back down from a fight. My Michigan story begins with the foundations my grandpa Joe laid. I'm running for U.S. Senate to lay a foundation for the next generation of Michiganders, one strong enough to protect the promise Michigan holds for every family. Let's get to work.
Joining us now is Democratic Michigan State Representative Joe Tate. He's now a candidate for United States Senate in Michigan. Thank you very much for joining us. This new reporting from the New York Times about what the Trump tariffs, the Trump budget is doing to a Michigan industry, this industry that is obviously hugely important for the future, rechargeable batteries. Is that becoming broadly understood in Michigan, how these tariffs are not actually protective of industries the way Donald Trump says they are?
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Lawrence. Before I jump into your question, I hope your viewers have had a chance just to reflect on the service members that lost their lives in the military. In the state of Michigan, we have over 400,000 veterans that live here in this state. As American and Marine veterans, I'm incredibly grateful for their sacrifices in protecting our freedom and self-governance. To answer your question it's getting there. Because what we're seeing now, frankly, a lot of Michiganders are seeing that Trump's tariffs are simply a tax on Michiganders. And the chaos is being created and being seen on the ground already. We're seeing companies like General Motors who are stand to lose billions of dollars in revenue, which that cascades down to profit sharing for workers. We're also seeing investments that the state of Michigan, when I was speaker, we made those investments, whether it was in Detroit, or Marshall or Lansing, for this battery technology. We're seeing pauses on that. we're seeing the private sector not wanting to do that because of the chaos that Trump is creating. And lastly, he broke his promise when it came to tariffs. He said he would lower costs at the beginning of his presidency. And frankly, prices are continuing to rise nationally, and that is also impacting these investments that companies have been making into this new battery technology.
Thank you very much for your service in the Marine Corps, and thank you very much for reminding us all what this day is actually all about. I'm very, very grateful that you did that. And as you go forward in your campaign, are there issues that are local to Michigan that in a Senate campaign there that we wouldn't be focusing on at the national level?
What we're seeing from Michiganders, I think first and foremost, is the issue of cost of living. We are seeing Michiganders that have built foundations for themselves and their children. And we're seeing that Donald Trump is the primary threat to that with tariffs and the economy, trying to tear down those foundations. We know that that Michiganders are losing money. They're having a harder time putting food on the table. And they're having a harder time with job opportunities because of what is going on and what is taking place in this economy. And I would say, if I could sum it up in just one statement, it is the loss of opportunity for economic mobility.
There's also, obviously, if the Republican Trump budget bill passes, there's going to be a significant loss of Medicaid participants because of that budget bill. What do you say to those voters worried about their health insurance in Michigan?
Trump and House Republicans have frankly been pushing a bill that's going to cut core programs for Michiganders. That includes Medicaid. If this bill, the spending bill that they pass out of the House moves through, you're going to look at nearly 30% of Michiganders who are on Medicaid lose their coverage. And that's a problem. And that's actually a Republican idea and a Republican plan. That is frankly why I'm a Democrat. I believe that Democrats have the best ideas, but we need to have a continuous bias for action in terms of where we're moving forward. And we need to show voters that they need to understand that Democrats, with their ideas and their actions, will be successful in the future-facing elections. And frankly, we don't need, figures like Nancy Pelosi trying to determine who's going to be the next representative from the state of Michigan in D.C. So from one former speaker to another, I think she has her endorsement wrong.
Michigan State Representative Joe Tate, now candidate for the United States Senate in Michigan. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lawrence.
All right, guys.
MSNBC's coverage continues right after this.
I'm going to end my live stream and thank everyone who came by. Hit that like. And I'll see you guys maybe for a cup of joe. See you, Kennedy. Thank you for coming in. Mad Dog, thank you for coming in. And anyone else that may have been in the bushes, thank you. And thank you for the likes. And I'm out. Good night.